Chapter 8. The Judges. 1. Judges and their duty. Deuteronomy 16:18-20, 1:16, 19:15-19, 25:1 and 2. 2. The character of judges. Exodus 23:6-8, Leviticus 19:15, 24:22. 3. The supreme judge. Genesis 18:25. 4. The priests as interpreters of God's law. Deuteronomy 21:5. From Deuteronomy 21:5, we learn that priests had a part in the court as interpreters of God's law. These men could be priests or Levites, according to Josephus. Each judge, according to Josephus, had 2 Levites assigned to him to assist him by determining what law or laws of God applied to the case at hand. This did not mean rendering the decision of guilty or innocent, but establishing which law or laws of God applied to the case at hand, the nature of the penalty, and so on. The judges who heard all such cases governed the proceedings and rendered the decision, but the Levites expounded the relevant law. This requirement is essentially tied to the law set forth in Deuteronomy 1:17. Ye shall not respect persons in judgment, but ye shall hear the small as well as the great. Ye shall not be afraid of the face of man, for the judgment is God's. God is the supreme judge of all men and nations, and he requires all to obey his law. He hasn't relinquished his right to rule to any other, nor does he recognize as law any law other than his own. It is an offensive act to call the Lord God while denying his law. No, quote, respect of persons in judgment, end quote, Deuteronomy 1:17, does not mean impartiality because its premise is a partiality to God and his law, to justice rather than to men. The law is totally against evildoers, criminals, but their guilt must be determined before sentence is passed. Until then, there must be a careful attention to evidence. In Exodus 23:6-8, the judge is first forbidden to, quote, tamper with a poor man's rights in court, end quote, in Moffat's rendering. Second, false charges are to be avoided because innocent persons are greatly damaged thereby, even when acquitted. Third, innocent peoples must not be put to death, nor bad men acquitted. Fourth, bribes must never be accepted because they destroy the cases of good men and they blind justice. The judge must represent God, and the term Elohim, God, is even applied to judges because they function for God and his law, or should. Psalm 82:6. God required that judges be appointed in all the cities. Deuteronomy 16:18, together with priests and Levites to work with them. Deuteronomy 17:8 following, 19:8 following. In Exodus 21:22, the judge seems to be given discretion with respect to the sentence. It is to be, quote, as the judges determine, end quote, but what it means is that the penalty must be in terms of the damages, and this is clearly stated in the following verses. Exodus 21:23-25. God requires, as Leviticus 24:22 makes plain, quote, one manner of law as well for the stranger as for one of your own country, for I am the Lord your God, end quote. Only under biblical law is there equal justice. In other religions, the concept of justice is an alien one. When I was young, I heard a missionary tell of an experience in an East Asian country. One morning, one of the missionary's very young sons was playing with other boys from local families. The boys picked up pebbles and tossed them at one peasant's cow. Later that day, the cow died. It had long been ill and close to death. A village court found the missionary's son guilty, but none of the native boys. The penalty was a new cow for the peasant. When the missionary protested, the villagers were both astonished that he did and also angry. Had he no sense of justice? No knowledge of right and wrong? After all, he had 2 cows and the peasant now had none. Such concepts of justice are commonplace outside of biblical faith. They have arisen rapidly in the Western world even as Christianity has receded. If the judge's religion is man-centered, his idea of justice will be also. If the judge be man-centered, his decisions will seek to please man and not God. If a judge represents church, state, or any other agency, he will be unjust and partial because he will represent an institution, however good, rather than God the Lord, the true lawgiver. Judge Harold J. Rothwachs has rightly observed, quote, "We know from our history that we have to control government. The American Revolution arose from that belief." End quote. Judges too need to be, quote, "controlled," end quote, but the basic control is self-control. If men do not believe in God's justice and law, they are then not under the control of anything but their self-will, whether they be judges, pastors and priests, or laymen generally. The history of crime is the history of man's self-will, his firm belief that life is best if, quote, "my will be done."